According to T.S. Eliot, April is the cruelest month. I find it instead to be the most capricious and puckish, inconstant, variable, in alternative measure promising and discouraging. What we know on faith and in fact is that spring is here. Spring, the season of changes. I love spring. Its early bite and surprising balm, its quicksilver changes. As the world around us comes alive again, we too awaken, or can, to receive life as a gift, not accepted as a given. Nature's sympathetic urgings play their changes on our starched fabric. We melt into that first warm day. Our guard goes down. We flow with and not against the weather. This particular April, as many of you know, I'm undergoing a strenuous course of chemotherapy to hold my cancer at bay, which can hold me at bay as well. I try to resist the temptation to crouch into a defensive posture. After all, odds are that this will be my last spring, and I don't want to let it slip by unnoticed. I wish to honor it with my wonder. I wish to revel at its strangeness and glory. I don't want to miss my last spring. Chemo's going well, by the way. My tumors are shrinking. Time is being bought. The cancer is incurable, but it can be held at bay, and the wonderful people at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, whom All Souls' own Dr. Marty Hensley introduced Carolyn and me to a year and a half ago, are doing just that, it seems. They've renewed my lease on life for at least another season, for which I am immensely grateful. There are days when it feels as if we are destroying the village to save it, but most of the time, I'm happy to report, I feel very much myself. Your love and support have meant the world to me. In fact, I can't imagine being any luckier in my choice of companions along life's way. I did finish that book I promised you in February when I reported that my cancer had returned. It's called Love and Death, My Journey Through the Valley of the Shadow. It's in production as we speak. Beacon Press is rushing it into print, and copies will be available this June at our Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. It's really amazing how quickly they've turned this around. Some people ask me, how did you do it? How did you write this book so quickly? Well, there are three answers. First, I'm not a perfectionist. I've always taken a ready, fire, aim approach to life. And this book, consistent with my others, is no exception. Second, in it I sum up everything I've learned by heart from you over my 30-year ministry at All Souls. You have been such splendid teachers, especially during your own times of trial. So I simply had to transcribe my heart's familiar pages. It wasn't difficult to do. Not at all. But there is a third secret to my success in writing this book so quickly. Please don't tell the Commissioner of Religion, because she might suspend me from the game. That's right, steroids. Every week, the good folks at Memorial pump me full of steroids, to help me tolerate the poison they were pumping into me to kill the cancer. For 2 or 3 days after every treatment, I was flying. No wonder Roger Clemens didn't lose anything on his fastball. I could write all day. I could write all night. I haven't been so high since the late 60s. Anyway, now that you know my secret, I shall share with you a little of my book. I have a chapter in it entitled Bedside Manners, offering advice to hospital visitors. It's my Miss Manners moment in the book. But I thought it might be useful to share the ABCs of hospital visitation, given that we all find ourselves in a position of visiting friends and loved ones in the hospital and often feel inadequate and off balance when we do. So here's my little primer on hospital etiquette, adapted from my new book, Love and Death. In November 2006, within a month of my diagnosis, I awakened in the intensive care room at New York Presbyterian Hospital following successful surgery to remove my esophagus. Having never spent a day of my life in a hospital, I had had to fight back my fears as I entered the unknown. As with so many of our fears, the reality of recovery proved less daunting than my dark fantasy had been. I woke up in the recovery room to be greeted by my wife, Carolyn, and my colleague successor, Galen Gingrich. From the outset of my illness, Carolyn has turned to Galen for pastoral counseling, and you should all know he has proved a wonderful strength and boon to us, to both of us, throughout our time of trials. I didn't tarry in the hospital any longer than I absolutely had to. Hospitals are dangerous places. By marching around my floor 36 times the evening before my doctors gathered to make their decision on my dismissal, I escaped the hospital in 7 days, which was the minimum projection for my tour. I marveled at the care I received when there, and I was buoyed by the uptick then in my odds for survival. I'm going to spare you the details of my recovery, beyond my vanity in boasting surpassing valor in meeting most of my trials. They don't signify much in the whole scope of things. I shall take this opportunity instead to offer a few tips for hospital visitors, the value of which became real to me during my week-long stay. In the realm of sickbed etiquette, there are a few available guideposts. Here are mine. Apart from health professionals, I know of almost no one who doesn't find hospitals forbidding. In large part, this anxiety stems from fears concerning our own mortality. Everywhere we look, we're faced with reminders of pain, sickness, and death, all the more haunting in the context of a hospital's imposing impersonality. Yet someone we care about is ill. We bring ourselves as gifts. When we arrive at our friend's bedside, we must break through this veil of impersonality and our own fears and protective armor to ensure that our discomfort doesn't prevent us from bringing aid.